My parents sued me for stealing money I never touched because they wanted the house I bought with my own tears and sleepless nights. I was the daughter they forgot until I built something beautiful. Then suddenly they remembered my name and took me to court. They called me a thief. They brought fake bank statements. And the worst part, my own sister sat in that courtroom and said nothing. You think you know who loves you. Then one day, your mother looks at you across a courtroom and says, Chloe needs your house more than you do. This is not a story about money. This is a story about the moment I realized my family would rather destroy me than let me win. My name is Kelsey Morgan, and I am 28 years old. That is not old, but I promise you, I have lived enough pain for 3 lifetimes. I am sitting here in my car, parked outside a house that used to be mine. The windows are dark. The porch light is broken. A sad little bicycle lies on its side in the driveway, and I know that bicycle belongs to my niece, Lily. She is 6 years old, and she has no idea that the roof over her head was stolen. Let me take you back to when I was a little girl. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, a place called Millbrook. It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone. The kind of town where your business was never really your own. My parents were respectable people. My father worked as a manager at a hardware store. My mother was a receptionist at a dental office. They were not rich, but they were comfortable. We had a modest 3-bedroom house with a white picket fence. That sounds like a cliché, I know, but it was real. I remember the smell of my mother's apple pie on Sunday afternoons. I remember my father teaching me how to ride a bike on the driveway. But I also remember something else. I remember the way my parents looked at my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe was 2 years younger than me. She had blonde curls and big blue eyes. I had brown hair and brown eyes. She was delicate. I was sturdy. She was sweet. I was just there. I do not say this to be bitter. I say this because it is the truth. My parents adored Chloe. They adored her in a way that they never adored me. When Chloe scraped her knee, my mother would run for the first aid kit and my father would carry her inside. When I broke my arm falling out of a tree, my mother sighed and said, Kelsey, why can't you be more careful? I was 8 years old. I remember sitting in the emergency room, my arm throbbing, and my father was on his phone talking to someone about Chloe's dance recital. He did not hold my hand. He did not ask if I was scared. I was just the child who caused trouble. That was the pattern of my childhood. Chloe was the star, I was the shadow. Chloe got new clothes, I got her hand-me-downs. Chloe got a car for her 16th birthday, I got a bus pass. When I asked why, my mother said, Kelsey, you know we have to be fair, but Chloe needs more support, she is more sensitive. Sensitive, that was the word they used. Chloe was sensitive, I was tough, so I could handle less. I could handle being forgotten. I graduated high school with a 3.9 GPA. I got a partial scholarship to a state college. Chloe graduated with a 2.5, and my parents paid for her to go to a private art school. I worked 2 jobs through college. I waited tables and I tutored freshmen in math. I lived in a tiny apartment with 3 roommates. I ate ramen noodles for dinner more nights than I care to count. But I did not complain. I told myself that this was making me strong. This was building character. And in a way, it was. After college, I got a job at a small marketing firm in Columbus. I started as an assistant, making $35,000 a year. I worked 60 hours a week. I learned everything I could. I took online courses in digital advertising, in social media management, in search engine optimization. I was hungry, not just for money. I was hungry for proof. Proof that I was not the forgotten daughter. Proof that I could be someone. By the time I was 25, I had saved $20,000. It was not a fortune, but it was mine. Every dollar came from overtime, from skipping vacations, from driving a car that had a dented door and a check engine light that was always on. I lived in a studio apartment above a garage. It had 1 window and a shower that trickled instead of sprayed. But I was proud of that $20,000. It was freedom. It was my escape plan. Chloe, meanwhile, had moved back home after art school. She had not found a job in her field. She was working part-time at a coffee shop and painting in my parents' basement. My parents talked about her art as if she were the next Frida Kahlo. They hung her paintings on every wall. They told everyone who visited that Chloe was a true artist. I visited once a month. I would sit at the dining table and listen to my mother talk about Chloe's latest project, Chloe's new boyfriend, Chloe's struggles with anxiety. And then my mother would turn to me and say, "And how is your little job, Kelsey?" Little job. As if my 60-hour weeks were a hobby. As if my growing expertise in digital marketing was just a cute phase. I swallowed my anger. I always swallowed my anger. That is what I was trained to do. When I was 26, I decided to start my own business. I had seen a gap in the market. Small local businesses did not know how to use social media effectively. They were wasting money on ads that did not work. They were posting randomly and hoping for the best. I knew I could help them. I wrote a business plan on my laptop in that tiny studio apartment. I worked on it after my regular job, often until 2 in the morning. I used $5,000 of my savings to register the business, build a website, and buy some software tools. I called it Kelsey Digital Solutions. Not a flashy name, but it was mine. For the first 6 months, I had no clients. I remember staring at my bank account and feeling the panic rise in my throat. I had rent to pay. I had student loans. I had a car that was about to die, but I did not give up. I cold called businesses. I sent emails. I offered free consultations. I worked for one client for free just to build a portfolio. That client was a small bakery. I increased their online sales by 40% in 3 months. They wrote me a glowing review. Then another bakery called. Then a hardware store. Then a dentist. By the time I was 27, Kelsey Digital Solutions had 15 regular clients. I had hired 2 part-time employees. I was making $120,000 a year. I could not believe it. Me, the forgotten daughter, the one who ate ramen noodles. I had done something real. I had built something from nothing. That is when I decided to buy a house. I had always dreamed of owning a home, not a mansion, just a place with a garden, a kitchen with natural light, a bedroom where I could paint the walls whatever color I wanted. I found a small 3-bedroom ranch on the edge of Millbrook. It was a foreclosure. It needed work. The roof was old. The kitchen cabinets were from the 1970s. The yard was overgrown, but I saw potential. The price was $160,000. I put down 20%. I used almost all of my savings for the down payment and the closing costs. It was terrifying. It was also the best day of my life. I remember the day I got the keys. I drove to my parents' house to tell them. I was nervous. I still wanted their approval. Even after everything, some part of me still wanted my mother to smile at me and say, "I am proud of you." I walked into their living room. My father was watching television. My mother was knitting. Chloe was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. I said, "I bought a house." Silence. My father muted the television. My mother put down her knitting. Chloe looked up from her phone. My mother said, "You bought a house?" "How?" I said. "With my savings from my business. It is a small ranch on Maple Street. I close next week." My mother's face did the thing it always did when I accomplished something. It tightened. She looked at Chloe. Then she looked back at me. She said, "Kelsey, that is a lot of responsibility. Are you sure you can afford it? You know, your sister is still trying to find her path. We are helping her with her rent." I said, "I can afford it. My business is doing well." Chloe laughed. It was a small laugh, almost a snort. She said, "Your business? You mean the thing where you post pictures for bakeries?" I did not respond. I had learned not to engage with Chloe's jabs. They were like mosquito bites, annoying but not deadly. My father finally spoke. He said, "Well, congratulations, Kelsey, that is something." Something. That was the word he used, something. Not amazing, not wonderful, not proud of you, just something. I left their house 20 minutes later. I cried in my car. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself I did not need their approval. But it hurt. It hurt like a knife in the chest. Because no matter how old I got, that little girl inside me still wanted her parents to see her, to really see her. The next few months were the happiest of my life. I renovated the house. I did most of the work myself. I painted the living room a soft gray. I refinished the hardwood floors. I planted roses in the front yard. I bought a couch from a second-hand store and recovered it with fabric I loved. It was not a fancy house, but it was my house. Every nail, every brushstroke, every weed I pulled from the garden was a declaration that I existed, that I mattered. My business continued to grow. I hired 2 more employees. I moved my office out of my apartment and into a small commercial space downtown. I was making $200,000 a year. I was 28 years old. I had a house, a business, and a future. I started dating a man named Alex, who was kind and patient and made me laugh. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was winning. And then my parents sued me. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my long days. I had back-to-back client meetings. I was exhausted when I got home. There was an envelope taped to my front door. It was from a law firm. I opened it and read the first line. My hands started shaking. I read it again. And then I sat down on my front steps and I could not breathe. The letter said that my parents, Linda and Robert Morgan, were suing me for the return of $150,000. They claimed that I had stolen money from a family savings account that was intended for Chloe's future. They claimed that I had accessed this account without permission when I was in college. They claimed that I had used the money to start my business and buy my house. They wanted the house sold. They wanted the money returned. They wanted me to pay their legal fees. I stared at the letter. I felt like I was falling. Like the ground had opened up and I was tumbling into a dark hole. Because none of that was true. There was no family savings account. I had never stolen a penny from anyone. Every dollar I had ever earned came from my own sweat. My own sleepless nights, my own sacrifices. I called my mother. My hands were still shaking. She answered on the third ring. I said, "Mom, what is this? What is this lawsuit?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Kelsey, we have to do what is right for this family." I said, "You are saying I stole money. You are saying I stole from Chloe. That is a lie." "You know that is a lie," she said. "Your father and I have evidence. We will let the court decide." I said, "Evidence of what? There is no account. There is no money. You are making this up." She said, "Chloe needs a home. She has a daughter now. Lily deserves stability. Your house is perfect for her. It is close to us. It has a yard. You can afford to buy another house. Chloe cannot." And there it was, the truth, raw and ugly and bleeding. They did not believe I had stolen anything. They knew I had not, but they wanted my house. They wanted to take the one thing I had built with my own hands and give it to Chloe. Because Chloe needed it, because Chloe was sensitive, because Chloe was the daughter they actually loved. I said, "You are going to destroy me. You are going to ruin my reputation. You are going to drag my name through the mud. For a house." My mother said, "You have always been so dramatic, Kelsey. We are not destroying you. We are simply asking for what is fair." Then she hung up. I sat on my steps for a long time. The sun went down. The streetlights came on. My neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, came out to get her mail. She saw me sitting there and asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I was not fine. I was drowning. The next day, I hired a lawyer. Her name was Diane. She was a sharp woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. I told her everything: the childhood favoritism, the business I built, the house I bought, the lies my parents were telling. Diane listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "Kelsey, I am going to be honest with you. This is going to be ugly. Your parents are claiming you stole money. They will have to provide evidence. If they cannot provide evidence, the case will likely be dismissed. But in the meantime, your name will be in court records. People will talk. Small towns love this kind of drama." I said, "I did not steal anything." She said, "I believe you, but belief is not evidence. Do you have bank records from college, tax returns, anything that shows your income and expenses?" I said yes. I had kept everything, every bank statement, every pay stub, every tax return. I was organized because I had to be. When you have no safety net, you learn to keep records. Diane nodded. She said, "Good, that will help. But Kelsey, I want you to prepare yourself. Your parents are not just suing you for money. They are trying to break you. They want you to give up. They want you to hand over the house to avoid the humiliation of a trial. Do not do that. Do not give them what they want." I promised her I would not. The lawsuit became public within a week. Millbrook is small. News travels fast. People started looking at me differently at the grocery store. The cashier who used to smile at me now gave me a tight-lipped nod. The baker, who had been my first client, called me and said she needed to pause our contract because she was uncomfortable. She did not say why. She did not have to. Everyone assumed I was a thief. My parents had painted me as the greedy daughter who stole from her own sister, and people believed them, because they were the respectable parents. And I was just Kelsey, the girl who left town and came back with money no one could explain. I stopped going out. I stayed in my house. I worked from home. Alex, my boyfriend, tried to support me. He brought me dinner. He held me when I cried, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He asked me once, gently, if there was any chance my parents had a point. I looked at him and said, "Do you really believe I would steal from my own family?" He said he did not know what to believe anymore. That broke something in me. A week later, he stopped calling. I do not blame him. This kind of poison spreads. It infects everything. Chloe called me exactly once after the lawsuit was filed. It was late at night. Her voice was quiet. She said, "Kelsey, I did not ask for this." I said, "But you are not stopping it." She said, "Mom and Dad think this is best for Lily. They think I need a stable home." I said, "Then they can buy you a house. They have savings. They have retirement accounts. They can downsize. They can help you. Instead, they are choosing to destroy me." Chloe was silent for a long time. Then she said, "You always had it so easy, Kelsey. You are so strong. You can handle anything." I need this." I hung up. I could not listen anymore. Easy. She thought I had it easy. While she was painting in my parents' basement, I was working 60 hours a week. While she was going on dates and posting pictures of her lattes on Instagram, I was eating ramen noodles and crying into my pillow because I was so tired. But I was strong. So I could handle being betrayed. I could handle being erased. The court date was set for 6 months later. 6 months of hell. 6 months of depositions and document requests and lawyers' letters. My parents' lawyer was a man named Mr. Hendricks. He was the kind of lawyer who smiled too much and asked questions designed to make you look guilty. In my deposition, he asked me about my college years. He asked if I had ever been short on rent. I said yes. He asked if my parents had ever given me money. I said no, not after I turned 18. He asked if I had ever had access to my parents' bank accounts. I said no. He asked if I was sure. I said I was absolutely sure. Then he presented a document. It was a bank statement from a savings account at a regional bank. The account was in my parents' names. The statement showed a deposit of $50,000 on a date when I was in college. Mr. Hendricks said, "Miss Morgan, do you recognize this account?" I said no. He said, "Your parents have testified that this account was intended for your sister's education and future housing. They have also testified that you knew the account existed and that you accessed it without permission." I said, "That is a lie. I have never seen that account before in my life." He said, "Then how do you explain a transfer of $40,000 from this account to a checking account in your name on the date of March 15, 6 years ago?" My heart stopped. I looked at Diane. She was frowning at the document. I said, "There was no transfer. I never received $40,000 from my parents, ever." Mr. Hendricks smiled. He said, "So you are calling your parents liars?" I said, "Yes, I am." The room was very quiet. Diane asked to see the document. She studied it for a long time. Then she asked for a copy. Mr. Hendricks provided it. When we left the deposition, Diane pulled me aside and said, "Kelsey, that bank statement looks real. The account number is valid. The transfer is recorded. If they can prove that money went into your account, we have a problem." I said, "But I never got that money, I swear to you. I never got $40,000 from anyone." Diane said, "Then someone forged a transfer, or someone opened an account in your name. Either way, we need to investigate." We investigated. Diane hired a forensic accountant. It took 3 months. 3 months of waiting. 3 months of watching my business decline because clients did not want to be associated with a potential thief. 3 months of watching my savings dwindle because I was paying legal fees. 3 months of crying in the shower so my neighbors would not hear. And then the forensic accountant found it. The account my parents claimed was a family savings account had been opened just 6 months before the lawsuit was filed. The $50,000 had been deposited by my parents themselves, using money from a home equity loan. The transfer of $40,000 to an account in my name had been created by someone with access to online banking. The IP address used to make that transfer traced back to my parents' home. There was no real money. It was a fabrication, a lie designed to look like I had stolen something. My parents had manufactured evidence. They had taken out a loan, deposited it into a fake account, and then created a fake transfer to make it look like I had taken the money. They had done all of this to give them a legal reason to take my house. I was not shocked. That is the saddest part. I was not shocked, because deep down, I always knew they were capable of this. They had spent my whole life showing me that Chloe mattered and I did not. This was just the logical conclusion. This was their final act of erasure. Diane filed a motion to dismiss the case based on the fabricated evidence. She also filed a countersuit for fraud, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I did not want to countersue, I just wanted it to be over. But Diane said, "Kelsey, if you do not fight back, they will do this again. They will find another way. You have to show them that you are not a victim." So I fought. The day of the trial arrived. It was a gray October morning. I wore a blue dress that made me feel professional and calm. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Diane. My parents sat at the other table with Mr. Hendricks. Chloe sat in the gallery, holding little Lily on her lap. My parents would not look at me. Chloe would not look at me either. They stared straight ahead as if I were a stranger. The judge was a woman named Judge Patterson. She had a kind face but hard eyes. She had been a family court judge for 20 years. She had seen everything. She called the court to order and asked for opening statements. Mr. Hendricks stood up. He said, "Your Honor, this is a simple case of a daughter who took what did not belong to her. Kelsey Morgan accessed a family savings account without permission and used that money to start a business and buy a house. Her parents, Linda and Robert Morgan, are not wealthy people. They sacrificed to save that money for their younger daughter, Chloe. They are here today seeking justice and the return of their hard-earned savings." Then Diane stood up. She said, "Your Honor, this case is anything but simple. This is a case of parents who manufactured evidence to steal their own daughter's house. Kelsey Morgan built her business from nothing. She worked 2 jobs through college. She saved every penny. She bought her house with her own money. Her parents, unable to accept that their less favored daughter succeeded, created a false paper trail to destroy her. We will prove that the so-called family savings account was opened months after the lawsuit was filed. We will prove that the transfer was made from my parents' home computer. We will prove that Kelsey never received a single dollar that did not come from her own labor." The gallery murmured. Judge Patterson banged her gavel. "Order in the court." My father was the first witness. He walked to the stand with the confidence of a man who had been lying for so long that he believed his own lies. He swore to tell the truth. Then Mr. Hendricks asked him about the savings account. My father said, "Linda and I opened that account when Chloe was born. We wanted to save for her future. We added money over the years, birthdays, tax refunds, anything we could spare." Mr. Hendricks said, "And did Kelsey know about this account?" My father said, "Yes. We told both daughters about it. We wanted them to understand the importance of saving." Mr. Hendricks said, "Did you ever give Kelsey permission to access that account?" My father said, "No, never. That money was for Chloe." Then Diane cross-examined him. She stood up and walked slowly toward the witness stand. She held a stack of papers in her hand. Diane said, "Mr. Morgan, you testified that you opened this savings account when Chloe was born. Chloe is now 26 years old. Is that correct?" My father said, "Yes." Diane said, "Then why does the bank's record show that this account was opened just 8 months ago?" My father's face went pale. He said, "That cannot be right. We have had that account for years." Diane handed him a document. She said, "This is a certified record from the bank. It shows the account opening date. Would you like to read it aloud?" My father stared at the document. His hands were shaking. He said, This must be a mistake." Diane said, "Is it a mistake, Mr. Morgan? Or did you and your wife open this account after your daughter bought her house, specifically to create the illusion that she had stolen from you?" Mr. Hendricks objected. He said, badgering the witness. Judge Patterson overruled the objection. My father said nothing. He just sat there, his face gray. Diane asked him about the home equity loan. She presented the loan documents. She asked him if he had taken out $50,000 against his house just months before the lawsuit. He admitted that he had. She asked him where that money went. He said he did not remember. Diane said, "You do not remember where $50,000 went." My father said, "I put it into the savings account." Diane said, "The savings account you claim existed for 26 years. Objection. Sustained. But the damage was done. Everyone in that courtroom knew my father was lying. My mother was next. She was more composed than my father. She had rehearsed. She answered Mr. Hendricks's questions smoothly. Yes, the account was for Chloe. Yes, Kelsey knew about it. Yes, the money was stolen. But when Diane cross-examined her, my mother's composure cracked. Diane said, "Mrs. Morgan, you have 2 daughters. Is that correct?" My mother said, "Yes." Diane said, "Do you love them equally?" My mother hesitated. She looked at Chloe, then she looked at me. She said, "A mother loves all her children." Diane said, "That is not what I asked. I asked if you love them equally." My mother said, "Chloe has always needed more support." Diane said, "So you love Chloe more?" Mr. Hendricks objected. Judge Patterson overruled. She said, "Answer the question, Mrs. Morgan." My mother's eyes filled with tears. She said, "I do not have to answer that." Diane said, "You do not have to answer, but the jury will draw their own conclusions. Let me ask you something else. When Kelsey bought her house, did you congratulate her?" My mother said, "I do not remember." Diane said, "I have a witness who remembers. Mrs. Patterson, your neighbor, testified in a deposition that Kelsey came to your house the day she bought the house, and that you were not happy for her, that you seemed upset. Is that accurate?" My mother said nothing. Diane said, "Mrs. Morgan, did you sue your daughter because she bought a house you wanted for Chloe?" My mother's face twisted. She said, "Chloe deserves a home. She has a child. Kelsey is selfish. She always has been." The gallery gasped. Even Mr. Hendricks looked uncomfortable. My mother had just admitted it, not in so many words, but everyone heard. She had sued me not because I stole anything, but because she thought Chloe deserved my house more than I did. I was called to the stand. I swore to tell the truth. Diane asked me about my childhood, about the hand-me-downs, about the car for Chloe and the bus pass for me, about working 2 jobs in college, about starting my business, about the sleepless nights, about the ramen noodles, about the $20,000 I saved, about the house I renovated with my own hands. Then Mr. Hendricks cross-examined me. He tried to make me look angry, bitter, jealous of my sister. He asked me if I resented Chloe. I said no. He asked me if I was angry at my parents. I said yes. He asked me why. I said, because they spent my whole life telling me I was not enough. And when I proved them wrong, they tried to take everything I built. Mr. Hendricks said, "So you admit you are angry, you have a motive to lie." Diane objected. Judge Patterson overruled. I looked at Mr. Hendricks. I said, "I have never lied in my life. Not about this, not about anything. My parents are the ones who lied. They lied on the witness stand. They lied in their depositions. They lied when they created that fake bank account. I have bank statements, I have tax returns, I have pay stubs, I have everything. They have nothing but a fake account they made to steal my house." Mr. Hendricks said, "No further questions." The trial lasted 4 days. On the 4th day, the jury deliberated for 3 hours. I sat in the gallery next to Diane. My hands were cold. My heart was pounding. I thought about my little house on Maple Street. I thought about the roses I planted. I thought about the hardwood floors I refinished. I thought about the nights I cried into my pillow because I was so tired and so alone. And I thought about my parents, the people who were supposed to love me, the people who tried to destroy me. The jury came back. The foreman stood up. He read the verdict. On the claim of theft, not liable. On the claim of fraud, liable. On the claim of defamation, liable. On the claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress, liable. The jury awarded me damages. They awarded me the full value of my house. They awarded me legal fees. They awarded me additional compensation for the harm to my business and my reputation. The total was over $400,000. My parents sat in silence. My mother was crying. My father stared at the floor. Chloe stood up and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Lily was crying. Someone had to carry her out. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt vindicated. But I did not. I felt empty. I had won the case. But I had lost my family. Not that I ever really had them. Not in the way a daughter should. After the trial, I went back to my house. I sat on the floor of my living room and I cried. I cried for the little girl who broke her arm and no one held her hand. I cried for the teenager who got a bus pass while her sister got a car. I cried for the young woman who ate ramen noodles and worked 60 hours a week while her parents paid for her sister's art school. I cried for myself. And then, when I had no tears left, I stopped. I rebuilt my business. It was not easy. The trial had scared away many clients, but some came back. The baker who left came back and apologized. She said she had believed the rumors, but now she knew the truth. Other clients came. New clients. Word spread that Kelsey Digital Solutions was run by a woman who had fought her own parents in court and won. People respected that. Or maybe they were just curious. Either way, business grew. I did not sell the house. I kept it. I painted the bedroom a soft yellow. I planted more roses. I adopted a dog, a golden retriever I named Justice. He sleeps at the foot of my bed and follows me from room to room. He does not care about my past. He only cares that I am here. My parents lost their house. The home equity loan they took out to create the fake evidence came due. They could not pay it. They also had to pay my legal fees and the damages. They declared bankruptcy. They moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. I heard through a friend that my mother works at a department store now. My father does odd jobs. Chloe lives with them. She still paints in the basement. Lily shares a bedroom with her mother. I do not gloat. I do not wish them ill. I simply do not think about them. That is the revenge, I suppose. Not the money, not the house, not the verdict. The revenge is that I stopped caring. I stopped needing their approval. I stopped wanting them to see me. I see myself now, and that is enough. But here is the thing about revenge. It does not heal you. It just levels the playing field. The pain is still there. The scars are still there. I still have nightmares about the trial. I still wake up some mornings and check my bank account to make sure the money is real. I still flinch when someone raises their voice. I still struggle to trust people. Alex never came back. I have not dated anyone since. I am not ready. Tonight, I am sitting in my car outside the apartment where my parents live. I do not know why I came here. Maybe I wanted to see them. Maybe I wanted to see Chloe. Maybe I wanted to see Lily. I watch the lights go on in the kitchen. I see a silhouette that might be my mother. She moves slowly. She looks tired. I could knock on the door. I could say something. I could forgive them or I could scream at them. But I do not. I start my car. I drive away. I go home to my house, to my dog, to my business, to my life. My name is Kelsey Morgan. I am 29 years old now. I am not the forgotten daughter anymore. I am the daughter who survived. And that is the only victory that matters.